All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. It is December 1st. I can't believe it. The end of the year 2023 flew by, and Christmas is right around the corner. So I am super excited about this. It's a good day because we have a guest that has come back onto the show. I love having repeat guests, and this is in Andrew Keel. You might remember him from, I actually don't know the episode you were on, Andrew, but it was a ways back. And Andrew is a master in the mobile home park community, something that I like because that's something I also look at. So Andrew has over 2,500 lots under management with the Keel team nationwide, I believe. So this is going to be a good episode. We're going to go into all things mobile home parks and self-storage. Andrew, thank you very much for hopping back on the podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you, Gabe.
Absolutely. Told you before we started, we always start the same way. We like to hear stories, how people got started. So refresh everybody. How'd you get started in real estate?
Yeah, so I started flipping houses, residential around Central Florida, where I live here in Orlando. And through that, I was putting up bandit signs, mailing out yellow letters, doing the whole wholesaling, flipping, off-market deal strategies. And through that, I got a lead on 2 manufactured homes up in Ocala, Florida, which is about an hour and a half away from Orlando. And I didn't know what to do, but I knew the guy was motivated. Went up there, bought both of those homes for $1,100 a piece. Came back home, got the titles and the bill of sale, and went on YouTube and typed in how to make money with mobile homes. And I was introduced to Lonnie Scruggs, who wrote a book called Deals on Wheels that teaches people how to get mailbox money by buying the homes and then selling them on contract to an end buyer that would then pay lot rent to the park and then pay home, make a home payment to you.
And just to clarify, you only bought the home here. You're not buying, it's not a mobile home on a piece of land. You're just buying a home in a park.
In another person's park. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So bought 2 of those, fixed them up a little bit, cleaned them up, put them on Craigslist, and had like insane demand, like over 25 people the first day reach it out. And I asked for $2,500 as a down payment and $250 a month for 5 years. And I sold it right away, found a good qualified person that got approved by the park. I sold both of them. So I was like, this is it. I wanted that monthly income instead of like the flips that were like, okay, I'd have a big closing and then I'd, have 3 months of nothing. And it was just me at that time. So I did 19 more of those Lonnie deals. And it was good. It actually, all that income offset my monthly expenses. So I was able to leave my W-2 job at that time and completely, just devote my time to the flips and then doing these Lonnie deals. And around that time, I met a park owner who started giving me homes in his park to rehab and sell because he just wanted lot rent. And he saw me as like an investor to kind of rehab the homes that he didn't want to, he didn't really care about. So he kind of took me under his wing. We became friends. And at lunch one day, he said, hey, you should really get into mobile home park investing. It's more scalable. There's financing. You don't need all the money yourself. You can actually raise money. And he taught me like how to syndicate, a pool of investors to fragment ownership and buy the bigger park. And that's exactly what I did. I had enough income to offset my expenses. So I just went into learning syndication and mobile home park investing full time. And that was back in 2015. And then, now we've syndicated, over 50 projects, mobile home parks and self-storage. Mobile home parks is 95% of what we do. And it's just been an amazing journey.
That's awesome, man. I've heard so many times people talk about that strategy of going in, buying an individual mobile home in a park and flipping it. And people have actually done that in the parks that we own. But I never like really looked into it. It seems like such a good strategy, especially for people who are just starting out, where you don't need as much capital. There's really a very finite area that you're looking in parks, exactly where to go. And if you can find, get in contact with the owner of the park, that's just like you said, an easy way to get a good flow of deals coming to you. So yeah. That's awesome.
I didn't have a lot of money. I think a lot of people don't, right? You start out, you don't have a lot of cash. My parents didn't come from money, so I was bootstrapping it, and I knew my grandfather before he passed away, had a little real estate portfolio. He had like 7 single family, homes that he rented out. But this was like, hey, I can get into these things for $2,200. I went in there and fixed up, the drywall had some knocks in it. So I did stuff like that and cleaned it out, and then sold these things really quickly without, the flips. You got to have everything to the nines, right? It has to be perfect. It has to be done right. But these mobile homes, I was just cleaning them out, making sure they didn't smell weird. And then I could sell them, very, very quickly, and get that monthly cash flow, which, I think, I'm not sure if you're a Robert Kiyosaki fan. I assume you are, but like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he has this game, and
Cash flow
it's
quadrant.
like cash flow quadrant.
Yep.
But what's the board game? He has the board game that I
Isn't it
got a
called the
while
cash
back.
flow quadrant? Maybe it's not.
I think
I'd
it's
have to
like
Google
I
it.
think it's called the Rat Race or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
I played that, and it's all about like, hey, getting your balance sheet, getting enough cash flow to get out of the rat race. And I didn't know it at the time, but that's exactly what I did. I was able to generate. I think it was like just under $4,000 a month, which at that time was just my wife and I, and that offset my entire monthly expenses off of the cash flow from those individual deals, and that gave me the freedom I needed to scale up. So I think any advice to someone just starting out there would be, hey, get your monthly expenses as low as possible. I had a truck at that time that was paid off. It was an old beater, but it got me from A to B. And just get your monthly expenses as low as possible, and then get some monthly cash flow to offset that, because then you can really invest the time. And I didn't get the money from my first mobile home park deal. I kind of thought, oh, we're going to close on a mobile home park syndication, and I'm going to be rich. I'm going to have more cash flow day one. That is not how it went. It took a good 3 years of investing into that thing before we can refinance out the initial capital, pay back my investors, and then I got to partake in that cash flow. But I was able to wait. I was able to hold out that 3 years without needing cash flow to pay bills, and that was the difference maker.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember back to when I started on the commercial side, I always had this like goal, and it was like $5,000 a month. If I could hit 5,000, then I'm set. And so many people come on here and their stories kind of mirror yours, where it didn't take that long to get to a reasonable amount of cash flow to where you could feasibly live on it. And that's what I like to tell, what I would like to hammer into anybody listening who's just starting out. Like, your goal is not that far off. If you just keep going, you will get
Yeah.
there. And it's especially on the commercial side, it's not as hard, or it's not as unsurmountable as you may think. Yeah, it's one of the reasons why we
It's
love real
almost
estate. So
totally. And it's almost like the single family home route, which, don't get me wrong, like there's a place for that, right? But when you're penciling out deals on market that maybe cash flow $500 a month, and you're looking in like C and D grade areas that are like, those affordable housing areas, you're one air conditioning unit or appliance away from all that cash flow being gone in,
yeah, and
instantly,
that
right?
happened to me. I bought before I got into the commercial. I was doing, I bought a couple of rentals, and that exact thing. Like, one water heater would go out, and my cash flow is gone for that
All
month.
year.
And yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That month or that year, right? Depending on how big, like if the roof is bad or a storm comes through and you need a deductible for your insurance, it's a number of things, and you have one tenant. So it's like one thing goes wrong, your income goes from whatever it was to zero. Or in
yep.
commercial, we have, we're doing a mobile home park deal right now with 166 lots.
Wow, it's a big one.
One tenant moves out, our income is still great, and we have time to refill that. It's not like our cash flow is going to go to zero right away. So I think that it's commercial. If I can advise anyone, you know go to commercial sooner. Don't sit in single family thinking that that's the bee's knees, getting 300 to 500 a month cash flow off of each deal, because you're going to run into more hurdles, right? Like the banks max you out, right? When you go to the banks trying to get loans for these single family homes, the banks max you out, like, oh, you have 4 mortgages, okay, well, you're going to have to go over here and try this other lender. Where in commercial, the banks are like, coming to me, hey, do you have any more deals coming up? We want to be your lending partner. So it's just a whole different ball game.
Yeah. Yeah. I almost feel like single family is something you should do once you've kind of established it on the commercial side, because you can scale so much. You have to have a big team to do single family well. I mean, if you're doing one at a time, it just takes way too long and way too much effort. But I did Google it. It is called the Cash Flow board game for anybody who is interested. I had
Cash
to know
flow.
that answer.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
And it's
do
a
you
fun
guys,
game, man. It's like I think it's better than Monopoly, and Monopoly is one of my favorite games. Obviously, we got to talk about that on here, but it's like a really fun game. Like the whole goal is, hey, you got to get out of the rat race, and then you go to like this whole other section of the board that's like, hey, you can now buy businesses and commercial real estate, and your income, gets incrementally higher. So it's a great way, like in a fun manner. Like I played with my in-laws, over the holidays, and it's just a fun way to just kind of implement like what I've done in my life to create financial freedom. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick it up. We do board game nights here with me and my friends and my family all the time. And we just had our first daughter. She's 6 months old now, so she's
Congrats.
gonna
That's
have to. We're
awesome.
gonna have to buy that and start playing it.
So cool.
So okay, so you guys do 95% mobile home parks. Have you done any? And this is my own selfish interest here. Have you done any RV parks? We're closing on our first like true RV park, and I'm just curious with somebody who has
Nice.
as much experience as you have. Have you done anything on the true RV side?
We have one park that is 90 lots and it has 30 RV lots that
Mm,
came with it. And that's our only exposure to that. And it's a unique scenario because there's a local employer that rents out those units for 6 months of the year.
mm,
And they bring in temporary workers from Texas that come up and work it's a sugar beet area. So they'll work the sugar beet farms and then they'll go back home. But that's our only exposure to that. We don't do true RV parks. I've heard people that have had success with that. Obviously, the number of RVs through COVID, the number that I've sold is like insane. And RV and boat parking is huge right now on the self storage
yeah.
side of things. But I yeah I think that it's I guess what multiple do those trade at compared to say self storage or mobile home communities?
I mean, when I was looking on market recently, it was in the eights. When I was looking on LoopNet. I don't, LoopNet is not something to be trusted, but it was a lot lower than I thought it was going to be. I thought RV parks, true RV parks would trade around the 10 to 12 area, but um, and it's in the East Coast. We're buying it in North Carolina, but yeah, I just wanted to ask to see
Nice.
if you had any interesting insights into how RV parks operate over mobile home parks. But going back to your story, you said you bought your first true mobile home park as a syndication. That I feel like that's kind of unique because usually people just they'll do a JV or buy it themselves with cash for the first one. So syndication, that's something I haven't. Everything that I've done up to this point has been a JV deal. One, two, three capital partners come in, close a deal with me. So I haven't done a true syndication yet. How was it going into that first deal? How'd you learn it? Was it much more difficult in terms of setting up? Give me the rundown on that first syndication deal.
Yeah, on our first syndication deal, one event that I learned a ton at was the Secrets of Successful Syndication. It's a real estate guys radio show event that they put on in Dallas a couple times a year. And that was really helpful. You can meet with some securities attorneys, you can meet with other bigger operators and kind of learn about what they're doing and tips and tricks and things like that. But I think the biggest part that I had to learn about is just the rules, right?
Mm,
There's SEC rules, there's 506B, 506C, and understanding the differences in what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then, realizing that, for what we were doing was a 506B, which is for friends and family, right? You can't just market this all over social media or, create a paper, newspaper ad or a TV ad to like try to advertise for investors. It has to just be within your circle. So that's the easiest, and then really the attorney will handle all the paperwork and kind of walk you through that type of stuff. But from then till now, we've learned so much and added so much to the PPM and kind of what that looks like, but also educating investors like, hey, this is a 96-page document and most of it is trying to scare you away. Most of this is just listing out the risks of what could go wrong. And it's not just boilerplate, hey, mobile home park investing, risks. It's like, hey, what are the specific risks of this deal? Like, hey, for our PPMs, we get granular. We have a meeting with the securities attorney and we go into the specific risks for that deal. Like, hey, there's one employer that has like 2,500 employees and all the other employers in the area have 500 employees. So if that one employer goes out, like this property could suffer, right? Interest rate risk, right? Like if interest rates go higher and stay higher for longer, like, you really need to disclose as much as possible in those documents, because it's basically your evidence later on if you get sued by an investor that, hey, you disclosed, the possible risks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that leads us right into underwriting. So what do you look for when you are looking for new parks? I'm sure your criteria has changed from the beginning to where you are now. Um, what
Had to,
now?
with
What?
interest rates going up, it's a whole different ball game for sure.
Yeah.
um,
Do you guys do you guys look only for seller financing? Do you what are you doing now to find deals? And then what are the criteria that specific criteria that you're looking for um, that makes a deal for you?
Yeah. So really right now where the market's at, we're looking to underwrite to a 10 cap
Hmm.
once stabilized, right?
Oh, okay.
So like end of year two,
And is that yeah, okay.
once we've added value to the asset, the first year we're doing a lot of infill, we're, increasing rents, billing back, utilities, that kind of stuff. But by end of year two, it needs to be a 10 cap or better, because our interest rates we're getting are 7.75, 8% right now. So we need
Mm-hmm.
to create some sort of spread so that we can pay our investors the pref, which typically we have higher prefs than most other syndicators. It's usually a 10% pref that we're
Oh
paying
wow.
out.
Okay.
But again, we have to get there, and it has to be a value add deal. We can't buy stabilized assets right now for 10 caps. I wish we could,
Yeah.
but that's just not out there. So we're having to, find deals off market through cold calling, letters, etc., and then find the value add deals like this 166 lot park we're buying in Michigan. It has 40 vacant park owned homes, and it's a mom
Wow.
and pop owner that he used to rehab all the homes himself, but he got tired and he let them compound, and now there's 40 vacant homes. So we're going to come in and invest 10 grand a piece into all those homes, and that's going to add like $45,000 worth of value per home that we can occupy to the asset value. So
Oh
that's
wow.
how we're able to get that 10 cap by end of year two.
Wow, that's interesting. So you're that is included in the return that you're calculating for your investors. This selling them on terms. I'm
We're
assuming you're selling
counting,
the
yeah, we will sell them, but again, we're investing 10 grand into the rehab, and we'll probably be able to sell the home for 10 grand, that we put it in. So we're not making money, a lot of money off of the sale of the home,
hmm.
but it's a high lot rent market. That $45,000 in asset value
Oh,
comes
I
from the
get what you're
lot
saying.
rent. So the
Yeah.
lot rent in the market, I think, is like 475 to 500 a month.
Wow. In
So
Michigan.
that's,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, it's in a really good MSA. So I think that's the point I would say is hey, get the occupancy up and add value within that first year.
Cool. All right, we are running through the time, but before we move on to the quick question round, I gotta ask about self storage because I love storage. You guys are mostly focused on mobile home parks. Why haven't you focused your attention on storage? Is there something specifically about it, or do you just like to be, a single asset kind of operator?
Yeah, great question. So, we back in 21, we bought 11 self-storage facilities,
Hmm.
and we did the same model, right? Cold calling, buying off market. And we had some that did really well. And those were the ones that were in really good markets, right?
Hmm.
Like we had some in Denver, some in Round Rock, Texas, outside of Austin, Rock Hill, South Carolina. We have some outside of Columbus, Ohio. And then we bought 4 facilities in a smaller market, about a 50K MSA in Mason City, Iowa, and they haven't done well.
Hmm.
There's no other bigger operators there that are doing revenue management. So we're coming in and doing these new things, and even though there's high occupancy in the town, people are moving out. So we really have stopped acquiring new storage properties until we can figure that out and get those where the pro forma, said they would be, because we're a little bit behind right now.
Yeah, interesting. So you went into a metro, and because people aren't raising their rates to what market should be, you guys are kind of unable to get your rates to market, and so you can't really hit the
I think it's twofold, right? We bought all of these in 2021, which
yeah.
was just after the COVID T12s. We bought on COVID T12s, right? Where COVID occupancy levels were, 95, 98% occupancy, right? And, that's not realistic. If you look at like the past 10 years, occupancy is typically around 90%,
Hmm.
for storage. So we bought at artificially high rates because a lot of people were moving and doing different stuff during COVID. So that was one piece. Rates are right now, obviously time of year, right? It's December. So this is like the slowest time of year to rent storage. So rates are down 15 to 20%. So we had some headwinds there, but then also this one market, right? Mason City, it's an all mom and pop market. There's not a big professional operator like in Round Rock. We were right next to a Life Storage, and Life Storage was like raising rents every 3 months, and they're pushing rates, which I thought, would be a down thing. I thought that would be a bad thing, right? But it turns out
Raises
that
the watermark essentially for
exactly
everybody in the
all these
market.
mom
Yeah.
and pops are not raising rents. They want to be 100% occupied, and like that's their goal. It's not revenue. They're going for just 100% occupancy, so they just don't have to do anything. What else? I think it's just a different dynamic, right? Like pay per click
Yeah.
is not working. Like
Oh,
pay per
interesting.
click.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like, how are we advertising? We're having to relook at everything, right? Like we have to put this is where things we're trying, right? We're going door to door,
Wow.
knocking on different businesses, and we're putting up banners in the baseball field at the local high school. We are, sponsoring tables at like a local kind of food market, they have like a local
Yeah.
like thing, a couple times a year, like a local party kind of thing downtown. So we're like setting up a booth and doing different things like that to, show recognition and to, show people we have availability. It's not a price driven market. That's the other thing. People
Yeah.
don't get online and look for 5 different locations and say, okay, these are the cheapest, I'm going to move in here. It's more convenience. It's more who has availability, and we're just learning all these things because it's reacting so much differently than the Round Rock properties, the Denver, Colorado properties, the Rock Hill properties. So yeah, without getting too deep into it,
Yeah.
we're
No,
just
no, no.
learning
That's
it's
that's
different.
interesting. And I mean, it's so true with I don't know if it's specific. Well, I mean, it isn't specific to self-storage, but I had a big lesson learned where I bought in a metro that I wasn't like super knowledgeable about, and all the numbers looked good, but the specific area that I bought this facility in, like the corner this facility was on, was notorious for being, there was a lot of property crime there. It was right next to a really run down mobile home park. It was, a whole bunch of things happened. So I had a whole bunch of problems with this property, but it's because I didn't know the metro as well as I should have. So it's one of the reasons we like real
Yeah.
estate is there's so many things to learn, and there's even if you go into a new market you got to learn that market. So
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to move us on to the quick question round. Are you ready?
Sure.
Let's do it. Starts with books or any form of education. Give me 2 recommendations, one for general life wisdom and then one for real estate specific.
That's great. Yeah. So I would say for general life wisdom, I just finished this book. It's called For You When I Am Gone. And it's a book on like writing a letter to your kids when they're adults. And you do it now. And it's basically talking about a oh man, it's an estate plan beyond money. It's an ethical
Yeah,
will that you're
that's
writing
cool.
for them. That's like, life's most important treasures beyond money. Like what do you wish you could tell yourself
Right.
at 30 years old, right? So that's the first one. And then
Huh.
real estate related, I would say, I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad we spoke on earlier is a really good one. A book on mobile home parks specifically that I really like is called Trailer Cash by
Mhm.
Jamie Smith, and that's one of the first books I read on the topic.
Cool. I just pulled up For You When I'm Gone on Amazon. That seems like a really, really cool book. Really good idea. I'm gonna pick that one up. All right, next question is for your younger self. So let's go back to the Andrew who was just buying those first 2 deals for $1,000. Go back to him, look him in the eye, give him one piece of advice moving forward.
Wow, on the first couple of deals, oh man, um, do better due diligence,
Mm,
up front, right? Like don't get scared of every little thing, but just try to know as much as you can know, right?
yeah,
I think, I went to the boot camp, I got the 30-day due diligence handbook on what to do on mobile home parks, and I followed it to the T, but there's other stuff that I didn't look into. One, simple thing was like we didn't contact the power company. There was a mobile home park, 61 lots, but it only had 5 transformers. And I didn't know anything about transformers or electrical infrastructure. We just had an electrician check out the pedestals, but the transformers weren't supplying enough juice. There needs to be like 5 or 6 mobile homes per transformer.
Oh,
And this park
interesting.
had like one transformer with a line of like 25 homes on it. So they were having brownouts, at the end of the line. It was daisy chained down. So just little things like that would have been great to just make a quick phone call, talk to the local engineer and be like, hey, we're gonna fill these vacant lots here. Is there enough juice in the main line, and what does that look like, and who's responsible for paying for that, right? Because then we had to pay to put those transformers in, and that was like a $60 to $100,000 mishap that we had to then do a capital call and bring in money. So that was on my third deal, and obviously we've done 50 now, so we added that to our due diligence checklist, and now that's something we check on for every deal. But I think that's one of the things you get with investing in an experienced operator is hey, we've made mistakes and we've learned from them, and a new operator on their first deal may not be checking those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself. Every deal you do, or I do, I feel like my due diligence checklist just gets bigger and bigger and bigger because, you make these small mistakes when you're doing your first couple of deals. But then you remember, and the next deal, that's part of your due diligence, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Um,
Totally.
cool. All right. Next question is about your business. The first three positions you hire form the foundation of the business. So, what were the first three positions for you? And if you did it again today, would you do it in a different order?
Good question. Yeah, I think the first one was an executive assistant overseas, and that was monumental. I think every business owner, every entrepreneur should have an executive assistant that they're paying 1,500 a month to in South Africa, and it's as easy as
South Africa. Interesting.
getting on Indeed, posting an ad in Johannesburg, South Africa for an executive assistant, and then putting them through some sort of test task to make sure that they're capable of doing the tasks you would have them doing. And it's going to save you at least 10 hours a week of time. And if you compound that, and your time's worth, what is your time worth, Gabe? Mine's definitely worth over 1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking at that, $10,000 a week that I'm saving, it's a game changer. So I would say overseas executive assistant should be number one. Number two, I was fortunate enough to, I had a really good friend from high school that became our COO. He's still with me to this day. Been with us 7 years now, and he was boots on the ground with me, getting hands-on with our project management. So I got lucky with him, because he stayed with us, and now he's a partner in several deals. And number three, I would say, I would go back to hiring another person overseas for him, right? Because then he's that much more productive. There's two US people. We both have someone to take care of our, $10 an hour tasks, and we can be more productive and more efficient in our workflow.
Nice. I got to ask, why South Africa? You're the first person that said South Africa. Most people say Philippines. So I'm curious why.
Yeah, the accent is more friendly, and I have my executive assistant on the phone a lot. They're
Oh,
making
okay.
calls, they're getting bids, and it's more of like an English accent
Hmm.
than it's less foreign sounding, more kind of pleasant. And
Yeah.
I've found just the currency exchange is really good, so you really get a lot of bang for your buck over there.
Hmm.
Like you get a high qualified assistant. um, and even in the Philippines, right? If you get on, some of the websites, the good ones, right, are now $20 an hour,
Yeah.
even in the Philippines, right, for a bookkeeper or whatever. So I think South Africa is a hidden gem, and anybody listening to this, highly recommend it. Be the best $1,500 you spend, for full time, 40 hours a week, 4 weeks a month. $1,500 is a no brainer.
There you go. I love it. All right. Next question is about the US. It's a big place, a lot of opportunity out there. Give me the single metro you're most excited about investing in today.
Single metro. Geez, I really like the Nashville MSA.
Hmm.
We bought a property about 40 minutes outside of there, and doing like that perimeter around Nashville has been really good for us. Market lot rents are a lot higher than what a lot of the parks are charging right now.
Hmm.
So, that's one of the areas that we're looking at.
Cool. Yeah, Nashville. And it's a fun city to actually visit. I do like buying properties in areas that I want to go, and Nashville It's fun. That's a good place. All right, next question is about finding the deal. It all starts with getting in contact with that seller. So, what is your favorite way to find good deals?
Cold calling. It's boring. It's tough. No one likes to do it, but I even spend at least 5 to 10 hours a week cold calling myself.
Oh
Some
wow.
of our leads that I've been following up with for years, because it works. Building relationships, and nobody's going to be ready the first time you call them. You got to build that relationship, touch base every 3 months, and when they're ready, just make sure your name's in the hat. So I would say just talking to owners, building relationships is key.
Cool. I want to call out one thing you just said. You said you've been following up for years, and that is so true. I'm closing on a deal right now in North Carolina, and I have followed up with her for a year and a half until she finally signed the contract. And so, for anybody out there who is doing commercial stuff, you're do cold calling, do letters, but just keep following up. You're not going to close it on that first deal. You gotta,
Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy how long sometimes it takes to close these deals. So that's awesome.
And what part of North Carolina, if you don't mind me asking?
It's right outside of Charlotte.
Okay. So my wife and I are moving to Mooresville, which is just north of Charlotte. And it's interesting. The way we found our house is we mailed letters to about 600 different houses that were on the lake that we wanted. And we said,
Interesting.
hey, banks don't like it because I'm an entrepreneur, and they don't like that I can't qualify for a mortgage without like a whole bunch of different higher rates and stuff, because they think I'm high risk because I have depreciation on my tax returns. So asked if they'd be willing to seller finance, and sure enough, we found someone that said, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. He's a very well off person, and the house is a 7-figure house, and he's willing to finance that for us at a really good rate, better than we could get at a bank if we were W-2 employees. So I think that there's always a place for that.
Yeah, that's genius. Especially you were just completely honest, like, hey, I'm an entrepreneur. Banks don't like me. Would I'm still very credit worthy. Like I can support the debt. Would you do seller financing? That's a smart idea to go about, and it's good you found one. So you just like grabbed all the houses around a lake that you're looking for.
Exactly. I went on a GIS map, and I didn't do it, right? I created a 2-minute video, sent it to my VA in the South Africa. I said, hey, create a spreadsheet with all the addresses, the owner names, and their addresses, their mailing addresses on their tax, property tax invoice, and go around this whole lake. And I want all the houses that have a pool and are at least 4 bedrooms, and cross-reference that on Zillow. And she did that after a week or so. And then yeah, we found someone to mail out the letters that were like handwritten with like I think it was like pink envelopes or something like that, so it kind of sticks out.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
And sure enough, it worked.
smart. I love it. All right, second to last question, and this is about your strengths. We're all given gifts that we uniquely provide this world. So, what is your Superman strength?
Taking initiative. I think I'll be the first to tell you I'm not the smartest guy out there. Like I'm not quantum physics type of a dude. But I think grit is something that I have, and I have a high sense of urgency. If I want to do something, like I do it now. I don't sit around and wait and procrastinate. I'm doing it right now, and I think that's really the difference, Gabe.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's very common in real estate. I feel like because what do they say? Time kills all deals, and
Yeah,
so
that's written right here on my desk. Time kills deals.
there you go. And it's so true. You gotta just get it done. All right, that brings us to the last question. This is for the listeners. I'm sure people want to reach out, get in contact with you. What is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, the best way would be on our website. It's keelteam.com. That's just KEEL team, like a basketball team.com. And you can fill out the contact form. We've done, JV deals where we will, bring in someone that brings us a deal and bring them in on the GP equity, or we've paid over $250,000 in a single assignment fee. So like we'll pay assignment fees if the deals are good enough, and we will partner with you if you bring us a mobile home park over 50 lots on public utilities within an MSA with at least 50,000 in population.
There you go. That is keelteam.com, KEEL team.com. I will put that link in the show notes. So if y'all want to reach out to Andrew, just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down that full description. And in there, you can find his link.
Awesome.
All
One more
right,
thing,
man.
Gabe. I do have a free ebook as well. If you find me on LinkedIn, you can click on my click on my website link there where it says click here for all the things I do. I have a free ebook. It's the top 20 things I've learned investing in mobile home parks. And for anybody interested, you can access that for free.
Perfect. And that's on your website, you said?
It's actually on my LinkedIn. There's like it says click here for
Okay.
to see everything I do, and you click there, and it'll be the ebook.
Perfect. And I'll include that LinkedIn. It's just Andrew Keel or LinkedIn/Andrew Keel. And I'll put that link in the show notes as well. So you guys can reach out and get that book. Cool. Well, Andrew, that wraps it up. Again, thank you very much for hopping back on the podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gabe, for having me.
Absolutely. For everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. And if you guys want to support the show, all we ask is you give us a like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Other than that, hope you have a great week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.